Hello and welcome to The Witch Source. I am Whitney, and here with me I have Priestess Sirona Rose. Hello and welcome.
Hello. Hello. Thank you.
Thank you for joining today. We're having a little bit of difficulty, so we might end up just getting the recording later on Facebook, but we should be a go on YouTube right now, and of course on the podcast. People can download and listen to that. So tell us a little bit about, well, let's just start off with, where are you at now? You're Arch Priestess, and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was in the process of hiving out of my coven. I was trained in the European Celtic tradition of the craft of Wiki. People in the States call it Wicca, but it's the craft, and we lost our high priestess, so it all fell in my lap. So I've taken that over, and we are working at doing a lot of things in her honor. Her name was Rain Dove, High Priestess Rain Dove, and she did a lot for the pagan community, especially in Texas. She did a lot for the animal community and really helped out. She started a festival for the animals and did that, and really brought a lot of awareness and teaching children as well how to take care of animals, because people are not taught. I mean, children are not taught how to properly care for animals. So she was really enthusiastic about teaching other children to do that. But she loved the craft. Her heart and soul was the craft. And so here we are.
So how did you get started on your magical path? What was your introduction to magic, let's say?
Well, I guess I can, just about like everybody, I've always known I was different. That's kind of like the thing to say, but it sounds so cliche, but it's the truth, because we all know we're different from a young age. I received my first tarot deck when I was 17.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, it was my boyfriend. He bought it for me for my birthday, and it was the Rider deck, and it was awesome. But, even before that, as a little kid, we're outside, we're mixing our potions and making this and making that. I lived in the woods. The woods was my home. And, when I was 8, I even told my mother I was a witch, which wasn't good when you're raised in a Southern Baptist family home. So, but anyway, my grandmother was gifted, and we're Scott Irish, and I am Native American as well. So we have a lot of mixture stuff that I saw growing up as a child. Now, of course, I had the regular books we find as teenagers, black magic and all this stuff. And,
right.
Got to get our hands on all of this kind of supernatural stuff, because it's so fantasized by Hollywood.
Right.
And I kind of went away from it because, well, I got married and had a child, and then my husband at the time joined the military, and then off we were to Germany. And at that time, we did not have computers. I'm giving my age away, but we didn't have it, so it was really hard to find information. You really had to dig. And it was over in Germany, I saw the book, The Celestial Prophecy. And it was when it first came out, and I was like, there's people like me. There's really people like me out there, not just in my family, but out there. So it went from there. Eventually, I found myself in Seattle, Washington, where I opened up to everything. And then by the early 2000s, I found myself in Savannah, Georgia, where I began going to the witch meetups, the pagan meetups, the tarot meetups, and all that stuff. And meeting people in the community, and got to help out when the first Savannah Pagan Pride Day happened, and it was in 2002, 2003 time frame.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and the lady that did that, she did wonderful. Adriana, she did a wonderful job bringing that, and it's still going on. in Savannah now. So, it just kind of developed. I walked on my solitary path for about 15 years, and I studied with other traditions. I studied with, of course, Gardnerians, studied with Gardnerians, Alexandrians. I studied with the Welsh, with the Dingan men. Um, I studied with different ones, and I learned from them. I actually, physically did ritual with them,
Mm.
and was in that. I got my start down at Autumn Meet in Florida. So I mean, yeah, I've been there. I've been in this world for a while, and it was about 6 years ago. I was at a Savannah Pagan Pride, and I was doing readings there, and that's when I met my high priestess, and then I soon joined the coven, and I just felt home. I felt home.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
That's
I know
awesome.
it's so hard to wrap up very quickly because it's like, it's
Yeah.
20 years. That's 20 years you're talking about. And there's a lot of stuff that happened there. I've met a lot of wonderful people that have taught me a lot of things along the way. And I just didn't know what to do with them. You know, it's like I have all these tools, I have all these pots and pans, but I don't know how to cook. And that's
Right.
kind of how I felt. I was missing the foundation. And when I started in the traditional training, that's when I gained my foundation, and it really changed my life. It really helped me learn to focus and to work in that, to really work that energy and understand that it's not supernatural, it's natural. So
Right, exactly, exactly. It's
Mhm.
very much based in nature and the cycles and the
Yes,
changings and the
yes,
you can see it, you can find it
yes.
in
You
that.
can smell it. Yeah, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I knew that spring was going to be here because I walked outside on my porch and I could smell the pine sap. And I knew that, okay, I started taking allergy medicine then, but I just didn't catch it quick enough. So now our cars, I live in coastal Georgia. So um, I live down here where it's nice and hot all the time. And, there's just a sheet of yellow on all of our vehicles now. So,
Oh, wow, already.
yeah, already. But this
Wow.
nice
Yes,
warm
bring us
area.
some.
hmm Life is abundant here.
Yes, absolutely. Are you willing to share um, one of your most magical experiences um, in either as like a child or in a setting and it's something that you can share. I know there's some things that you probably can't, but
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of things that happen. It's just like, oh my goodness. Um, some of One of the things I would like to touch on, and I wasn't going to say anything about it, but I'm feeling pulled to talk about this. So maybe somebody needs to hear this. So
sure.
um, I'm feeling pulled to talk about 2 years ago, um, and this was during when I was still in. Um, I was still in, going through a little bit of training at that time, and I was fixing to get ready to be initiated again, and I had surgery that went bad, and I ended up getting septic. So
Oh, wow.
I was in the hospital for almost a month, and it was a really hard time because you go into that liminal space.
Mm.
I ended up, my kidneys crashed. I ended up having dialysis and all the blood transfusions and all that stuff. So I went into this liminal space where it was the in between. And many people will call that the initiation of the underworld. And you go through this and you see things. It's like the world is upside down and you see things in a slightly different way and you're explain things in a different way. And it all made sense to me because I knew what I was seeing. There's a lot of people that go through these spiritual experiences like this, and they don't understand what that is, and they don't understand how to communicate what they're seeing, and by that they misinterpret the whole situation. They think maybe it's evil or it's wrong or it's bad, but this is a point to where we have to think about the goddess Inanna, how she descended into the underworld. And there's also, we hear the Persephone also going into the underworld, but more, I lean more towards Inanna. Inanna descended into that underworld, and she was stripped away from everything that she thought defined her as this priestess, this goddess, um, the daughter of the moon god. So she was stripped away from all of that, and she was hung, for 3 days, and realizing that short sweetness in between life and death, and how bittersweet that can be. And then she was resurrected, and that's the simple part of it. But and through that she went through the 7 chakras and doing that clearing. So there's so much deep meaning in that, and for doing that, those people that are out there, because I hear people talk and I see people post, and I'm like, I don't just jump in there and take over. You don't do that. But people need to understand when they go through these spiritual things, it's okay to seek out people that are seasoned in the field, and not to fear teachers. There's a big fear on teachers, and I get it because I was there. And there's rights you have, there's questions you can ask, but to go to someone that's seasoned and kind of help figure it out. I'm not saying to go dedicate yourself to a coven. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying get some guidance so you know where you are, so it will not take you into that dark place of depression and whatnot. To have that explained, it goes into it goes into our psychology and stuff that Carl Jung spoke highly about.
Right.
And
Yeah.
but that is one. And
what was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
well, some of that I can't talk about, but from that experience, I've learned how precious life is, how fleeting it is,
Right.
and how much BS there is in this world. It's like how to make something, have something so simple and try to make it so absolutely complicated at the
Right.
same time. But there's a lot of that it's like people would you wouldn't understand on the outside. But the big takeaway is one of just realizing that there's more here than this illusions that may be presented before our eyes. There's depth. There is depth, and sometimes you have to go diving a little bit. But it's worth exploring.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Is there another magical experience or moment that you can share that made you sure of your direction and moving forward with the craft?
Well, I've always had things present themselves. Like, for example, when I moved up to North Carolina for a little bit, I was living down in Savannah, and my husband at the time had got a job up in North Carolina. So we moved up there, and the whole time I was up there, I was in these classes, and then I got ordained. I had to go to a class and get ordained because at that time in North Carolina, they did not honor online ordination. And I had also received my Reiki Master. So in order to perform Reiki in the state of North Carolina at that time, you had to be ordained. So you see how that went hand in hand.
Right.
So I did that. I did shamanic work. I did shamanic healing work. studied with a wonderful shaman out of Greensboro. I can't even think of her name right now. I was trying to look her up just to see where she's at, find that old email and look it up. That's been years ago. And then I did the wise women tradition. So it's always been places that I go to. It's like these things fall in my lap. And this is okay, okay. So as soon as I got all of that done up there, I got all those classes done under my belt. So I'm making my own shampoo. I'm making my own soap. I'm making my mayonnaise. And, the kids would make butter and, stuff like that. Then we ended up breaking up and I ended up moving back to Savannah where I took another course and I went a different way and found me here. So, and that got me more into that. So I feel like I've always been that way. You're pulled to it. And when you're called, my path isn't for everybody. And I get that. I get it. The priestess path is a very hard path. And sometimes you want to throw a temper tantrum and run away screaming. And other times your breath is wiped away from you because you're watching your students and just kind of light up because of the knowledge that it's like they get it. It's like I can't give you anything that's just going to answer every question for you, but I can give you the tools to get there. And
Right.
when you get yourself there, and when you do, it's absolutely beautiful to watch that process, to watch someone grow and you just see them lighten up. You see them glow within, and that to me, that is it. Because I know how I feel on this path, and it's hard to explain um, how beautiful it is to me,
Right.
and to be able to give, not give it to, but let another learn of that, to have them birth that from themselves. That's beautiful.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Um, so, can you tell us what are you doing in the community today, in the here and now? I know you said you took over the priestess position.
Uh-huh.
Are there other activities and things that you are involved with where maybe people can get more of you and what you're teaching and your guidance?
I do have a YouTube channel. It's Dragon Rose Creation 1013. There I put after my astrology shows that I do air, I post stuff on there. I post little tidbits, and I try to do really good. It's kind of hard to spread myself out so much, because there's just one of me. Um, I have that. And like I just stated, I have the AstroTarot Show that airs on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. on FringeTV.Online. Um, and I do that. I offer up that is an sometimes they're an hour and a half. And because
Oh,
I can sit and talk to you about astrology for an hour. So, for those people that want to hang in there, but then I do, and I do post the readings separately. Some people just want to see the tarot reading. And I try to educate people by putting these planetary aspects and with the tarot and showing how it connects. I am a writer for the Witches Brew magazine. I do the kitchen corner there,
oh,
kitchen
wonderful.
witchery, the herbals and stuff like that. Right now, I do go to festivals. I am a part of the International Pagan Music Association. So
No.
I attend festivals all around as much as I can. I love going to festivals. I hope to be able, I'm still working on getting my strength back, but I want to start being more active in the festivals around me, especially here. Um, Jacksonville, Florida is not too far from me. So I'd like to get, started down there. I haven't really been, but I've just been in this area for just now 2 years. So
Oh, wow.
getting settled in and all that kind of good stuff can be time consuming as well as doing everything else that I'm doing. So, um, and just try to, I help people. If I meet people in my community, I'm like, look, if you have any questions, anything like that, if you want to be, anything they might want to ask, there I am. Here's my email. Send me an email. I'll answer you to the best of my abilities. If I don't know, we will sure find out. So, um, but that's what I'm doing right now. Gosh, I'm a part of the Savannah Mystics Mall community. That is a community that me and some friends of mine, they did most of the work. I'm kind of like way back here now, but it's like a platform community for people that are spiritual in the spiritual world that are tired of like Facebook platforms and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Stuff like that. Just
That's
trying to.
that's awesome. Is that something that is just local, or is that something that like anybody can access?
Anybody can do. It's a platform. It's like Facebook. If you remember Facebook in like the beginning, how kind of generic it was,
Right.
it's a platform like that, and it has mystical sailors. They sell their wares on there, so different things like that. But it's mysticsmall.com, and
Okay.
nice little community, and it's free. So
Oh, that's wonderful.
we're
Okay.
trying
So,
to we're trying to spread that around. There's a lot of people that just have they just don't want social media anymore, and I
right.
get it, but so we have that. There's not an app for it, so you have to go on through the browser. So,
Okay.
but
And is it
yeah,
Mystic Mall or Mystics
mystic
plural?
plural.
Mysticsmall.com?
Correct.
All right, awesome. I will definitely make sure to add that
Yeah,
in and share that.
yeah.
I
We're
think that's
we're trying our
amazing.
best to get that built up and have that outlet for everybody. Um, you know, uh, my friend Tammy, she and I, we've done the Savannah Mystic Fair. That's something that we used to do, and when I moved away, it's like we can't do it. We were going to do one, and then COVID hit, so that was it. But then I moved, so no more Savannah Mystic Fair. So we're trying to do the fair down this way, and we're looking for a place down here, and that's just a big old psychic fair. So
So where are you located at now?
I'm in St. Mary's, Georgia.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mhm.
How far is that from Savannah, where you used to have everything?
It's 2 hours.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Cool. So I'm always happy to find new places where there are other pagans in a community so that other people can reach out that are maybe close to you, and especially finding events and stuff. And you did say that you were a part of the International Pagan Music Association.
Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
Um, do they have a place where people can come together and list somewhere on the website, like events and festivals, or do you know of a place where all of those are
I
listed?
don't. I don't think they do for that one. I do know that there was a Facebook page that was. It was talking about festivals. I mean, used to you could find all of them on Witchbox. I really miss Witchbox. I really miss that. Um, there used to be a Facebook page, but offhand, that's something that's very much needed um, in our community. And
I
for those
agree.
that want to tackle something like that, have some kind of page where you can list all the festivals that are going on because there's festivals that were going on around me that I had no idea about
Right,
until
exactly.
I got involved in all this, and I'm like, wow.
You know,
So,
well, being the witch source, maybe that's something I need to
mhm.
work on, is add a place and um, make all these connections that I'm getting doing these lovely interviews and start listing where it's a source, because that's the whole point, is to be a resource for witches
That's
to be able to
right.
go to and connect. So I think that's a great idea, and maybe we can connect and get some stuff worked out,
Yeah.
to get it started so I can get some events listed, because I really think that's so valuable. I hear so often, and you are probably so familiar with this, people think they're alone.
Yes.
They think they're completely alone. They think that there's no pagan community around them available. And I think people would be so surprised at the number of like-minded people that are near them. And it only takes a few getting together to say, hey, let's try to do an event, you know,
Right.
and then you get more people coming, then you get the turnout, and you can find out, you know, there are people. Is that basically how you got started with some of your events?
When I worked for a ghost tour company for a little bit,
Oh, wow.
and in part of that, what I had to do is put events together. And I worked with my friend Tammy, and she taught me how to do event planning and that sort of thing. So we would create like these paranormal hunts. You know, I hate calling them hunts, but like an investigation, paranormal investigation. We would do stuff like that, and living in Savannah, it was just
A great place for it.
yeah, it was one of the tour company that I worked for at the time was one of the oldest walking tour companies there. So we had a they had a little bit of clout. So we got to do a lot of things that some may not have, some of the investigation. So I learned how to do that. And that's how I learned how to do festivals, because what was going on at the time is there was nothing for no kind of psychic fair, no kind of nothing going on. And I noticed that we would do it like every 3 months. Like every
Oh,
3 months, we would do something like that. And everybody loved it. We did it at different places. We had friends that had shops. They had yoga studios and stuff like that. So we would go from place to place. And then we noticed there was like this bigger company that came through that did the psychic fair. And I'm like, wow, okay. It was like this big entity that goes something about the mystic fairs or psychic fair, something that kind of like a bigger thing. So we're like, okay, whatever. We're still not stopping
right,
because, you know, um, we at that time we had made connections, we had made good friends, and we're there for the community.
right,
And if the community wanted us there, then we were going to be there. And so we kept on until we couldn't do it anymore. And it's so bad because it's like now I'm just like itching. It's like, okay, I got to put a festival together. It's been a while. I need to put an event together. We've got to do an event. And it's like, when?
right, right.
I don't know. But there's so, the isolation that we all went through really did a number on some people.
Yeah,
And I do feel that it is good to have these festivals just like going on something all the time because, our schedules are hectic. Some days, some weekends we're free, some weekends we're not. And sometimes, as it turns out, those weekends we are free, nothing's going on, but those weekends we can't break away. There's this big festival. So the more we have, the more able we'll connect and to become a community and that sort of thing. And as far as here in St. Mary's, I mean, I know there's a community in Jacksonville, but even Jacksonville itself is, depending on where you're going, that can be an hour drive.
right.
Um, Jacksonville's a big city, and there's people out here. I've met them. I was in Walmart and met someone. It's like, you just thought, I like your necklace.
Right.
That kind of thing. It's like code word, like, hey, I'm one of you. But there's people here, and I know that, but it's just like, you don't want to be a creep, like, hey, come over to my house.
Right, right.
You don't want to be the creeper. So I don't know. I think it's a good idea and to find some place that, because going to people's houses can be scary for other people, and some people don't want to open up their houses to people.
True.
Um, but finding those places and just even going to a park, say, hey, let's meet at the park. It's a public park.
Right,
You can go
exactly.
have a picnic at a public park. It
Yes.
doesn't matter, you know. Um, go for a walk on the trails. We have the state park here, Crooked River. Go for a walk there. Do that. Even they have facilities that for festivals you can use. So just different stuff like that. And it's the problem with creating the festivals and stuff is getting people to help you because everybody wants to party, but nobody wants to work. And hey, love to party too, but that work's got to come first.
Right.
You gotta have that. You gotta have that work if you want that dream, you know. But I think that's a good idea to be a source like that. That's a good idea because a lot of people just
They
I
don't know where to
remember.
turn. Yeah.
I remember. Hmm. It's very sad, especially if they're living in households that do not support their lifestyle.
Right. And I think that's what we find a lot of here with the Witch Source when I get emails. That's a lot of what I get is they're new to the path, and the people around them aren't very open to it, so it's not something that they can talk about. So that's why so many of them love listening to the podcast, because they can get that information. They can get um, that sense of, okay, I'm not alone. There are other people out there. And that was the whole reason I started the podcast, because I wasn't finding what I wanted.
Right.
I didn't see the information out there that I wanted. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put it out there. So you have
Good
to
for
start
you.
somewhere.
You do. You have to start somewhere, and it doesn't matter where you are. You can always start. And I've had people that's come to this path that's older than me, older than me, and are just now able to come to the path and to do, and to walk their spiritual walk, to do what their soul is calling them to do. So, it can any walk, any time of life, you can just open up to it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think that, it doesn't matter the age, it's still scary. It's
Yes.
still scary because we've all heard about the crazy cults out there that's going to get us. And while there are some of them out there,
True. Yeah.
um, you know, there's some people that are actually okay.
Right. Right.
You
That
just
are in it for the right reason and want to just share the
right,
information and not push anybody in a certain direction.
right.
Yeah,
Well, it's not about power. It's not about gaining power.
exactly.
Um, it's when in one of my trainings, you had to learn the difference between a leader and a boss. What is a leader and a boss? And everybody takes that word boss and they don't, they think it's great, but a boss is not what a leader is. A
Right.
boss is someone who barks orders. A leader is someone who gets in there and gets in the trenches and grabs people by the hands and pulls them out and say, this is the way to go. Or, here you go, this is out. Now you go where you need to go, kind of thing. But they help
Exactly.
you out of that rut. And that was one of those things you had to learn.
I
Difference in
love that.
words. Hmm.
I love that. Because I think that's the part that's missing sometimes.
Yeah.
That difference between it's not all about the power it's not about who's at the top and who gets to direct,
Mhm.
and there's so much more to it. So on that note, can you share for us what it's like being in a coven from a member standpoint and from a priestess standpoint?
A bigger headache. Well, I guess I was kind of different with mine because I had when I started when I started studying and started learning other tradition, I had to start at the bottom, but I had already had a good amount of knowledge behind me, so it was kind of easy in some things. But learning the history and the myths and those things like that were very challenging because I didn't know them. And as you know, Celtic language, we have all these, well, not language, but the Gaelic language.
Yeah.
Um, and there's several of them. I mean, there's a difference between Irish and Scottish, and how many different Scottish versions of Gaelic can we go back to? Um, you know, it's the pronunciation of the words were really hard, and that's a big hindrance for people.
Right. They
Um,
read it, but they don't know how it's pronounced.
yes, and that's when you have to go. I mean, there's just Google it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I do, and then you can find out. But as far as being a member, you just kind of like, well, I would just show up and do what I need to do, And now I'm like, I have to show up and I have to do what needs to be done, not what I'm told needs to be done. It's more, you have to intuitively do things. We just had a coven gathering this weekend. So it was, planning everything out and putting everybody together and just putting everybody together that lives, because we are long distance. So just getting everybody together at the same time. And we were still missing some,
Oh, wow.
because things came up, Um, emergencies happen. You can't stop emergencies. And that's cool, that's okay. But we had a wonderful time. We had a wonderful gathering. And I think it's just the culmination feeling that you feel, um, to be that. I don't like to be that one that sits up on the throne all the time. I'll get down and talk to you. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get down and talk to people. I do take my time. I have to, but it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of organizing, and I understand now. While I was really, uh, Rhonda really emphasized focus and patience with me. Yeah, I get it now. You get some of these things later on. You're like, oh yeah, that's it. And it's a humbleness. It does make you feel humble.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. What has been some of the pros and cons of being in a group setting or in a coven versus being solitary?
Oh wow. Well, number one, solitary, I really did feel alone. I really did feel alone. And I did a lot of work on my own and things like that. But as far as being a coven, this is where I got my foundation. This is where I found structure. And as freedom loving as I am and rebellious as I can be, there does need to be a bit of structure in our lives because of how it's wired here. We have to have that little bit of structure to help us go, and that has helped me out a great deal. Um, because I can be a wildfire and just go. Yeah.
Is part of it the accountability, you think?
You know, um, I don't mind being accountable for what I do. If I do it, it's just I did it. I will pay for it. It's not that and there's some things that, I've done in the past, and I'm like, sorry, I don't do everything maliciously. That's not my intent. But accountability, oh yeah, 100%. I have it. It all falls with me. Every bit of it falls with me.
Right,
And but in saying that, you can only lead a horse to water.
right,
So I can only help you so far, and I can only encourage you so far, and you have to do that. People just they don't want to learn sometimes. They just have this idea of how things are supposed to be, and they're set on that. So they're set on this fantastical ideal they have planned for them, and they're not looking at, well, this is reality. That's beautiful and all, that's wonderful, but this is where we are. It's just, especially if they're coming out of, our mainstream religions.
hmm,
If they're coming out of that can be, and it is about deprogramming yourself.
right,
That is one thing that we take for granted, is the deprogramming part, because you have to rewire your mind, because in our world, there's not a sin.
right,
I mean, when we look at energy, energy is neither good nor bad. It is what it is, what it is. It's our perceptions, it's our intent, it's what we will it into being. So there's that. And there's like the typical way of of older thinking that you can pull back into about submissiveness and, things like that. It's like, you've got to stand up with you. To me, this path is all about, even though it's not pushed that way, it is all about self-empowerment.
Yes.
All about it. It is about getting off your knees and standing up and being self-sufficient in your right, taking your sovereignty, learning how to take care of you. Do not trust another person to take care of you, because they will not. You will be the last thing on their list.
Right.
So as long as you have yourself covered, you know that you and yours can be taken care of. And that's what this path does. It says, get off your butt. My high priestess used to always tell me, she said, look, the goddess will help you, but she's not going to slide a cheeseburger underneath your door. She's like, you got to get up and you got to work. And yeah, it was hard. I worked hard to get through the training that I did. I worked very hard. Many times I wanted to walk away. Many times, but it's like that whole thing is, when you're spiritually evolving, you're having this, they call it the shadow or the ego part of you. You go back and forth, and you end up being drugged by your hair. You're kicking and screaming the whole time. And then you just learn that you have to surrender. It's about surrendering, not in essence to some deity, for example, but to that flow.
Right.
And it's a bigger picture there. There's a bigger picture there. And understanding, I'm one that I believe that our birth charts, when we come into this world, that, our birth charts are like a blueprint. And it's something that, we are wanting to work on in this. We look at our north node, where we're going. We look at our south node, where we've been. This is what we're coming out of, and this is what we're having to transform into. And, I don't think we just appear here and then just go away. We're here for a reason. And all of us have different gifts and skills, and all unique. It doesn't matter if there's 12 Reiki Masters. I promise you, all 12 of them do healing different. Every single one of them. No matter if they're trained in the same techniques, everything. It's just their energetic expression is different. And that matters. And in order to get that clarity, one has to be clear and balanced and grounded and centered within themselves. And that's work. That's work.
It is. It really is, especially whether you are in a group, and especially if you're solitary. Like you said, doing that work is where it's at, and it's not easy work.
No.
I think a lot of witches have this idea that, they're just going to get into magic, and there's going to be these magical rituals and spells, and their life is going to just be magically turned around. They're going to wake up one day and everything's going to just magically be put into place. And that's not so. That's not how it works at all. You work slowly but surely at it every day. And then one day you might wake up and say, I did it. I love the life that I have, and I love everything that is around me. And I appreciate the fact that I'm here and everything I did to get here. And that's the magic. That process is part of the magic.
Right. And, one of the things, too, is that, people do come to this path to get into magic or doing spells. And honestly, in our tradition and in many traditions, and many witches, I know that, long-time witches that have been witches for 40, 50 years, they'll tell you that spell work and magic, that's one of the last things to go to. Because you are supposed to be magic.
Yes.
Everything that you do, from stirring the soup to stirring your coffee, putting your makeup on, all of that is a part of, it can be incorporated into that. You are magic. You are. You don't have to do these incantations every single day. I mean, yeah, if you want to do affirmations, incantations, spell work, stuff like that. You don't have to do that. And I see these spell a day kind of things. And I guess it's cute. And I'm not trying to judge anybody. I'm just saying you don't have to do that.
Right.
It's within you. And, sometimes we can make talismans or we can make these little charms and stuff to kind of empower that,
Right. Reinforce
you
it.
know, right. But we don't have to work, like that um, all the time. I mean, unless unless you're doing some really serious working,
Right.
but it shouldn't be the go-to. And that's what I see a lot in the community is it's a go-to. I
Right.
mean, when you can go, when you can go to Five Below. I mean, and I know, I mean, hey, people do it. That's cool. I get it. But you got white sage and you got all this stuff here, and it's kind of like,
You got the incense and you got the crystals and you got the
yeah,
books and you've got the cards and
right. And it's like, well, it's wonderful that it's out. I
right.
mean, considering when I was younger, in the bookstore that my boyfriend bought my tarot cards from, that was the only set in there. They
Right.
had this one section that was occult, one little section, and the rest of it was, regular stuff. But um, I kind of feel sometimes that it takes the sacredness out of things when it's exploited that way. But then
Mhm.
again, I mean, it's getting those items to people who wouldn't normally have those items.
True.
So then we get the sword, right? The double-edged sword.
Exactly. It truly is. And a lot of times now I'm finding that they're moving the magical occult to the self-help section or
Hmm.
putting it right next to it. But there's a reason for that too. You know,
Yeah, yeah. There is a reason, but we don't want to have people out and doing crazy stuff.
right.
People will do crazy stuff, um, or accuse you of doing crazy stuff.
True.
And that's one thing that people don't realize too. And that's, you know, everybody when they're like, oh, they wake up one day and I'm a witch, and which is wonderful, but that's great, but you don't want to be screaming that.
Right.
Where I live at, even here, it's still. I mean, I went into one of the clothing stores here, and I was carrying one of these bags that just I got it from TJ Maxx. It just said psychic, and it had a big crystal on it. It's just a bag to carry stuff in.
Right.
Nothing, just a cute little, gimmicky bag. And I heard them say, "I can't believe she walked up in here with that. I can't believe she's just in here." I heard this, and this is this day and age. Is everyone like that? No. But there's
Right.
certain areas of our country that are still within the Bible Belt.
Yes. Yeah.
And, in my days, I mean, I've been at this. I went to look at an old cemetery out in the middle of nowhere. It was just one of those old family ones. And people called the police on us while we were out there because they said that we were doing a black mass in the middle of the day at this graveyard. And
Oh my goodness.
it's like no, but I mean, it's yeah, in the middle of the day, you know. Um,
Wow.
and
The
it's just,
misperceptions are real.
hmm I mean, they're very much real. Some people really think. I think the biggest thing is when you tell somebody that you're pagan is, oh, pagans are evil. Do they worship the devil? They
Right.
think that of all, not just to them, pagans are evil people that are bad. And I'm like, if you only knew the true history,
Right.
because even, when we look at history, it's not just a certain people that's been lied to. Everybody has. And the
Yeah.
way that these mainstream religions got started um, wasn't pretty. And I
Right.
know we all have dirty hands. We
Yeah.
all have bloody hands when it comes to that. But the onslaught, its beginning was not done in purity. It was
Right.
not done so. But yeah, you just, and that stuff you have to learn. That is stuff you have to dive deep in because, when you look at when you look at the Celtic part, there's certain areas that are highlighted. Like you can have the Scottish stuff highlighted, the um, Irish, and then because, and then you go on down deeper. That whole section was what, from Spain all the way to Austria. That whole land there.
It's a lot larger than what people realize.
It's large, and the thing of it is, those people were robbed of their culture as well. A
Hmm.
lot of them were oral; they wasn't written. So if everybody's killed, they're
Nobody's left to
forgotten.
pass it on. Yeah.
They're forgotten, and that's a big thing. And I think that goes into why there's such an uprising of people turning back to the old ways, going
Yes.
there because they're connecting and they're understanding that, I mean, I know, like, for my people were forced here. Um, they were a part of, um, well, I have Native American, but they were run
Hmm.
off of the land in Scotland, the MacFarlanes. They were run off that with the McGregors and um, all of those. They were run off their land. The Jacobites, and that's
Yeah,
when they lost their land.
I think one of the best ways for people to really get started in the craft is to do the history, do your personal history, find out what your roots are, find out where your blood
Hmm.
lies, where your blood is going to sing,
Exactly.
do the history and do the history of that tradition and really research and study. That's what you started with, was you said you
Yes.
started with the different traditions and learning the histories and trying to
Yes.
figure out and learn the mysteries and the myths. They go hand in hand. All of that
They
goes
go
hand in
hand in
hand.
hand. Oh yes.
Yeah, and that is the true depth of the craft, not the spells. Just like
No.
you're saying, and there is so much confusion, I think, around that. Um, so I'd
I
highly
mean,
encourage people to do the research.
yeah, exactly. Because people just, you know, and some of our books are like, well, I want to start. Well, one of our recommended reading books is The Dark Side of Christian History.
Hmm.
And I've heard, well, I don't want to learn about Christian history. I want to learn about the craft. Well, in order to understand where you are today, you have to understand how you got there. And
Right.
then we have to understand how we can resolve this and
Hmm.
how we can make it better, so to speak. How we can use that information to create something. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to create better, not worse, but better. And
And heal.
heal. If we don't know what went on, how can we heal from that? There's a lot of us that have these ways of thinking, and when you understand this, you begin to see this in other people. Like they have a beat down attitude, or they'll have like this like a slave mentality of I have to keep my nose to the grinder, I have to keep going. And you
Mm,
have these people that are just workaholics, that's all they're working for because that's all they have self-identified with
right.
is a
Hmm.
job where you could be replaced tomorrow.
Right.
They wouldn't even miss a beat. I've seen it. People have passed away. That evening there was an ad put up for their position. It's like, mm-mm,
Right.
there's something deeper here. And yeah, if we learn those myths and what they meant, and and some of them, you know, some of these people they said were real people that really existed in time, and that's it's cool to read. But I do have to caution that a lot of people get confused by some of the writing because it was written by Christian monks and they didn't understand. And
Right.
that's when you have to start looking into some symbology and what things meant then. When you had the Romans describing, what is the island they took? It was the last stronghold of the Druids, and the women were running on the beach with. They said they had braids in their hair, and I think it was like it was their hair braided and on fire, but it wasn't. It was actually, excuse me. it was braids of grass they were burning because they were doing protection and stuff like that while the druids were doing their work. But when you hear that told in the other, it's like they sent their women out, and that's because that was their view. You
Right.
know, they were they had that patriarch mindset. And, you know, I'm sorry, my throat. But that when they saw it, it was like they sent their women out here to fight us with swords to die. I mean, they're just slaughtering. Why would they send their women out to us? Why would they hide behind their women? So to them, the Druids were cowards. Now, we can't say what happened, what didn't happen back then. All we can do is go back by these things that are being found out. And luckily, people aren't stopping at the orthodox academic learning, and they're going beyond that and getting out there and doing research themselves and meeting the people, meeting those people that are living in that land and learning from them, learning their stories from their mouth. That will tell you a lot,
Right.
because you probably know as well, they're story keepers that they pick. They just don't pick them out of a hat and say, oh, Ron is good. Ron, you around? No? Okay, well, let's pick Susie. She's good. They have to have many times, a certain bloodline. They have to be able to retain. It's not just something they wake up to do. This is stories that they're taught over and over, which is, it's like they are the book.
Right. They are the living book.
And of course, they're not perfect because, we're human, but you can find out a lot of truths from them when they talk about history, and you can see how well traveled our world was and how connected the people was before the all of this came about with the whole invasions and all of that
Right.
come about. So you can really see that. But my only thing is that my biggest thing with the pagan community is that there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Meaning too many people want to sit in their chair and bark orders and tell you you're wrong. And I know that they've paved the way. I know they've done the work. But, at some point, you've got to realize you don't know everything.
Right. There's always
And
room to learn more.
there's always room to learn more. And sometimes those elders in the community can seem like they're just closed off and they've learned all they can learn. But, when you get to that point, then you're not living.
Right.
So
Right.
that's one thing. But, for those that are seeking and those that are out there, I mean, there's people out there. You just have to look. I mean, you seriously have to look. But, but yeah, here we are.
Yeah, I've been working a lot. I know people have kind of wondered where I've been because I've been a little quiet here recently. And a lot of what I've been doing is trying to make the website that source and putting more of the myths up there and the mysteries and the why we do what we do, or give that information, give that resource. Can you? I know you recommended one book. Are there some favorite books that you can recommend to people on the path?
See here. One of my go-tos is, and I want to show you I bet I put it up, is The Witch's Bible by Janet Bearer, and I can't remember his name.
Okay, I can look it up.
That one's good. It's The Witch's Bible. That is really good. It's got all the Sabbats in there, and it explains what's going on in those Sabbats. Those are very important, to know, so you can break it down and understand what it's about. And the thing is, and I encourage people also around these Sabbats. We just had Imbolc, so write in your journal what is going on now. And they're like, I have to write about this every time, every year. Yes, because it's an unfolding. There's something new every year that is teaching you.
Right.
So journals is a must. You have to buy a journal and keep that. I have one for my dreams. I have one for moons. I have one for Sabbats. I do that.
We are on the same page with that. I always recommend starting with a journal.
Yes, start with a journal. Wow, these are. I wouldn't recommend those for beginners.
Yes.
Anything by, you have Lit Off the Cauldron, Patricia Crowther, she's a great author. I love Patricia Crowther, she's awesome. Then you have Doreen Virtue, she's, Virtue Valiente is good. All of those older authors, and I get really paranoid about mentioning some of these newer authors because I heard the big scandal that they wasn't actually authors. They had paid they paid ghostwriters. Some of them were, and I'm like, oh my goodness, who was that? So I get really nervous, but I like to stick to the tried and true kind of stuff. One book in particular here that where did she go? Lori Cabot also. Oh, that's not it. Lori Cabot also. She has a really good book called Power of the Witch. I really enjoyed that for a read. That's a different perspective too. I know a lot of people like the Lori Cabot and the Cabot tradition. But if you start out with like Patricia Crowthy, and then you have Valiente, you have the Virtues, those kind. And Witchcraft Today by Gerald Gardner. I mean, I know some people don't care for him, but that's a good book.
Right.
You know, and
information.
Because, yeah, it's got good information in it. It's not about his personality and his character. It's about information that he has obtained. And but Gerald Gardner, he did a lot for the community, no matter what people want to say. But I'd start with those. I would start with those authors and go from there.
Wonderful. If somebody is interested in getting started in a coven, what are your top 3 suggestions in feeling out joining a coven?
Well, there is a Seeker's Bill of Rights that is out. If you are approached, or you know someone, you want to join the coven, always ask your priest, whoever's running it, their upline. Ask them about their history. Ask them how long they've been on the path. They should not have a problem answering you. If somebody is claiming a tradition, they will not have a problem giving you an upline. And even if you want references, they'll give you references as well. You can ask for references. I know some people won't do that, and some people, will shy away from that. But yeah, this is important. You're working with people on an energetic level.
Right.
Energy is very, very important. Also, with us, our coven is closed. And a lot of times you will find that every now and then those closed covens will open up. And if they do, just see how it works, because I'm not really one for having that open kind where there can be different people there all the time while you're doing workings. It's okay every now and then to invite people in and to share and to share in the celebration, that sort of thing. But pay attention to the people there. Also, consistency. Is this person consistent? Do they do things they say they're going to do? Sure, we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all forget. We have to reschedule. We get it. That's cool. But are they respectful about it? Is this something that keeps happening over and over again? Because that just kind of is like flakiness. Also, things, they shouldn't ask you to do things that are illegal, or things that would, like, say for instance, you own a shop, okay, and you sell your wares there. they shouldn't expect you to give that to them or to other members as well. That's your job, that's your livelihood. They should pay that. And matter of fact, that they should want to pay for it. They should want to support you and to
Exactly.
support that.
Yes.
Now, different traditions, um, they have different rights and things like that, and that will be discussed with everyone. Um, this is something you do on your free will, and I know that's a lot of things. You're like, well, if the question was, well, if I'm in, can I leave? And I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, what do you mean? Can I leave? Do I have to be here? Does this mean I'm this for life? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You should be able to leave a coven anytime. Now, how they go about that is completely up to them. Whatever they do, um, different different covens have different bylaws. So, yeah, you can anytime you can go. Um, some people it just gets too much and they just need to step back. It's just they can't handle it all. And that's
Right.
okay. That's okay. I get it. I feel like that sometimes too. Like, what did I do? Um, but yeah, I mean, just pay attention. If something is seeming sketchy or off, investigate it.
Right.
Investigate it. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And even when those things that are there, the questions that are asked, because some of the stuff is coven business and that's fine, but they will try to answer you in the best way that they can, you know. And like I said, it's not some secret that you're just. It's just how it is. It's like this is the tradition. If you want to know it, then you have to join the tradition.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I've heard the stories about it. I've heard the stories about some of these covens, and I'm like, what? There was this one coven in Savannah. The girl was claiming to be Gardnerian, and she's claiming to be of Gardnerian lineage and an actual tradition there. She would only give her a magical name, and that's fine. That's fine. You have every right to keep your public name to yourself. I mean, usually the leader of it would the priest or priestess would have that information, but that's fine. You don't have to broadcast that. But it's good if you do because it sets up a form of trust.
Right.
But I could not find, and I've looked on the Gardnerian Seeker page on Facebook and asked around because I know some up there people. Nobody heard of her. So I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We've talked a lot.
I do that. I talk a lot. But nobody, and she wouldn't answer questions by people, and I'm like, and you're still going there? Well, yeah, it's like, okay, you just don't want to be alone. People
Right.
go sometimes because they just don't want to be alone, and they like the socialization of it. But if people won't answer your questions, that's red flags.
Right.
I mean, if they can't, that's one thing, but if they can, that's entirely different. Um, but yeah, it's the Seeker's Bill of Rights. I mean, I'm sure they can Google that. Um, I know that it's on the Witchcraft Teachings, the core. I know it was on there. I've put it on my group, the Cauldron of Allen. Um, but I'm sure they can go to Seeker's Bill of Rights, and they
Right.
have that. They have that. But now, the other thing that people have to understand is that just because you go and petition doesn't mean you're going to get in
True.
because you may not be a good match for that coven. And that's not personal.
Right.
That's not personal. Some people try to fit into places that they don't really fit into. And maybe you just don't, everybody don't get along. And you can't have a coven like that. You can't have a coven running smooth where people are not getting along. Having
Right.
spats and having disagreements is one thing, but you have to have that connection.
True. Very true.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was one of the biggest problems that Buckland had when he brought that knowledge to the States. Is everybody wanted him to train him, and he couldn't.
Right.
He's
Right.
one person.
Very true. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for
Oh, you're very
joining me today. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about or mention that we haven't covered?
welcome. No, just go listen to my astrology. It's
Yeah, tell us again how everyone can find that, because I would love to
uh,
sit in and listen. What do you share like for the week? Is it the astrology for the week or the month?
I share it for the week, and it airs every Wednesday on FringeTV.Online at 8 p.m. And that's 8 p.m. wherever you are, because it's an internet TV, so it's different in different countries. So it's 8
Oh,
p.m. on Wednesday wherever you are. You can find me on YouTube. It's at Dragon Rose Creations 1013. That's 1013. And I also have Spotify as well. It's Inner Wisdom. It's INNER Wisdoms. Um, I do that on Facebook.
okay.
You can find me Astro Tarot with Sirona Rose. Very simple. So you can find me there. I am on Rumble, and that's Sirona Rose. Of course, I'm on TikTok, and I think I'm Sirona Rose on TikTok too. I try to get on there, and it's just like I said, I'm busy.
Right.
I'm busy. It's easier to throw up a little post sometimes than it is to do a video.
Right.
Um, but yeah, if they follow me on let's see, if they follow me on Facebook, I usually put everything on my Astro Tarot with Sirona Rose.
Okay.
When I release the astrology reading for the week, I put everything on that Facebook page,
Okay. All
every
right.
bit of it. And if somebody is not on that and just wants to get my stuff, if they want to, listen to my readings and things like that when they come out and they're not on social media, I would suggest them just follow me on YouTube. And again, that's at Dragon Rose Creations 1013. That would be the best one.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I would love to get together again in the future and talk some more, especially if you happen to get some events ready and we can talk about those. If that
Yeah.
happens to come up again, which I hope it does.
Well, we're getting ready to we're planning out the International Pagan Music Association Awards,
Oh,
and
good.
those are really good. If everybody likes pagan musicians, um, and we'll get that up, and I'll let you know about that too. That is in the making. So,
Awesome.
and there is a place tag is coming up. It's Trees of Avalon Gathering.
Okay.
That's coming up in April or May. But if they look up Trees of Avalon Gathering, they'll be
Awesome.
able to find that. I'm having to close my eyes and see the word. But yeah. But as soon as I've got your contact, so as soon as I find out about anything, I'll let you know as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and my email, if anybody wants to get in touch or has more questions for Sirona or the Witch Source, my email, of course, is thewitchsource@gmail.com. Anybody can reach out if you have a request of somebody that you want to have interviewed, or if you ever have questions about someone we've interviewed or want more contact information, you can reach us there. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to share your information out with the world. And yeah, I think that's it from us. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Have a
Have a,
wonderful rest of your day.
you too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Stay magical.
Oh,